Hey, what's up guys? Garden here, coming to you guys with a brand new video today. And yeah, it's been a couple of weeks. I've been playing around with Susanoo, and man, I tell you, this deck was difficult to decide on. Yeah, I was all over the place with how to build this. I'm aware that there's a few different variants of Susanoo that you can go with, but I kind of wanted to go with like a basic version of the deck, just so you could start out with. But I am aware that there's builds with like Riley, for example, and Dia, and there's also like different card choices that I've seen across a variety of different decks, which is quite crazy to see. But yeah, this is the version that I decided to go with. But we'll go right into it, and I'll show you guys what I'm playing. But like I said, I wanted to go with like a basic lineup for this deck, because not only am I getting used to OTT in general, but Susanoo actually brings a pretty interesting playstyle, to say the least. It's similar to other OTT decks in a way, but it is a little bit different in the way that it plays. So we'll go into it. So first of all, we are playing, of course, our 4 copies of Susanoo. Really, really cool card. Really, really powerful as well. So when placed on Vanguard, you look at 2 cards on the top of your deck, reveal up to one card from among them, put it to the top of your deck, and then put the other one to the bottom. So it gives you a stacking effect straight away when you ride it. Really, really good. And the main thing about that is that it reveals the card. And this will become a lot more important as we go through the deck when we see cards that have revealing abilities. So we'll get to that later. But the second effect, which is the main effect, which people know it for, is once per turn you can Counterblast and Soul Blast to reveal 2 cards from the top of your deck, add them to your hand, and then activate all the trigger effects of the revealed cards, which is really, really damn good. One of the downsides that Tsukiyomi had was that, yeah, Tsukiyomi could like draw you a ton of cards, but it was really annoying when you would draw into those triggers. And Susanoo pretty much gets around that ache, because you're basically drawing into those triggers, but you're also triggering them at the same time, which means you're getting the crit and the power pressure during the main phase, and then your opponent has to worry about that as you're going into your battle phase, which is really, really cool. And the extended part of the effect is that if you have a grade 3 in your soul, you're basically going to reveal 3 cards instead of 2, which of course is a lot better. So yeah, you're kind of getting like a quad drive or a what's it called, a quadruple drive, 5 drive checks I think it is, or a pent drive. I can't remember which one it is. But yeah, you're getting 4 or 5 drive checks basically in a turn, which is pretty damn powerful. Let's be honest, because triggers when they go off are pretty potent, to say the least. But that's not the only thing that will go off when you reveal those cards. So of course we're playing the 4 Susanoo, but with him we are also playing the backup grade 3, which is going to be 4 copies of Amaterasu. This is Goddess of the Sun Amaterasu. So this used to be the old Crossride, I believe, back in the day, but she's come back as sort of like a Susanoo support card, and pretty damn good card is that. So her skill is that when revealed from the deck, you basically bind the top card of your deck, and then she gives your Vanguard 10,000 power and a critical, which is also not restricted in terms of when that can happen. Like, you could do this in the early stages of the game. And yeah, throwing a Vanguard at your opponent with not only power increase, but a critical in the early stages of the game, pretty damn good. But also, it just gives you that more ability to actually apply crit pressure to the opponent. Because bit of a spoiler here, but we are essentially doing the 12 crit variant of this deck, since I think it makes the most sense for this type of play style. So that's her first skill, and then the second skill is that on Vanaria, when she attacks, you can discard a card from the hand. Now, the way this works, and you got to be precise here. I've got to be precise because I've actually messed this up a few times. But you look at 3 cards on the top of your deck. You reveal up to 1 normal unit from among them, so it has to be a normal unit. Reveal up to 1 normal unit from among them, add it to your hand, and then put the rest of those cards on the top of your deck in any order. Because I actually messed it up, actually recently I messed that up, where I actually put them to the bottom of the deck, because I was in the mindset of like Tsukiyomi still for some reason. But yeah, remember, you're looking for a normal unit, and you are putting the rest of those cards on the top of the deck. And that's actually important, because not only does it give you the ability to stack triggers as well, if you saw them, but you're adding a normal unit to your hand, so you're replacing the card that you're discarding for that cost, which I'm not sure if I mentioned it or not, but yeah, when she attacks, you have to discard a card from your hand as well. So that is important to take note of. But yeah, she's really cool with another grade 2 that we play in this deck, which I'll get to later. But yeah, the reveal skill of her is amazing, and the stacking capabilities you can get with her to manipulate your deck is also really solid. So she's actually going to, more times than often, act as a rear guard more times than often. So do sort of picture it as like a rear guard more than a vanguard. But if you do ride her as a vanguard, then I think it's kind of cool that she can somewhat dig down the deck to sort of look for Susanoo, so that's pretty cool there. But yeah, she's really, really cool, and I quite like her. So we'll find the 4 copies of Amaterasu, Goddess of the Sun, the Return of the Goddess of the Sun. So 4 copies of her. And then the next card is somewhat similar to Amaterasu, but it's the grade 2 variant, more or less, which is going to be Ichikishima. So her skill is basically when she's revealed from your deck, you bind the top card of your deck, and I should note that if you're adding the card to your hand when it gets revealed, you're going to be binding like the next card at the top of the deck, because there are moments where you reveal the top card of your deck, but you don't actually move it from the deck. It's still on top of the deck. So like Susanoo's first skill, for example. So in those occasions, they would actually bind themselves, which is something to take note of there. But yeah, generally speaking though, she's just going to give you 10,000 power to the Vanguard. So in terms of when her effect goes off is pretty important to sort of keep track of, because you don't want to be, triggering this effect off like through Amaterasu, like after your Vanguard's already attacked, for example. So you got to keep things like that in mind. But the second skill is that when she's placed on the regard circle, you look at the top card of your deck, and then you can put it on the top or the bottom of your deck, and then you reveal the top card of your deck. So you actually look at the card first, decide if you want it on top or bottom, and then wherever you put it, you then reveal the top card of your deck, and then if that card that you revealed is a normal unit, she will get 10,000 power. So what is a normal unit in a deck? Amaterasu. So if you reveal her, or even another Ichikishima, you're going to get not only the reveal skill of her, but you're also going to get an extra 10k. So that's pretty cool there. And the fact that she lets you check the deck as well beforehand allows you to get some pretty nice setup opportunities there as well. So I quite like Ichikishima. She's pretty cool. Sort of like a miniature Amaterasu, but just not as good since she doesn't have that critical effect. But yeah, still somewhat good. And next with her, we are playing 4 copies of a card I'm hoping to pronounce correctly, so bear with me. We have Diviner Kuroikazuchi. So I think I did a good enough job with that. So yeah, his skill is basically, when on Vanaria, you can Soul Blast 1 once per turn, discard a card from your hand, and then you reveal the top card of your deck, put it into your hand, and then you activate all trigger effects of the revealed card. And if it was a normal unit that you revealed, then he'll get 5,000 power, 6,000 power instead. So it'll come with a 15k attacker, which is not too bad. 8k booster behind that, you can get 23. And if it was like the grade 3 searcher, the grade 1, that can get an extra 5k. So that's like a 28k column, which is pretty good when it comes to the force matchups on those magic numbers there. But yeah, he's pretty good. It's somewhat like a miniature Susanoo skill, because you are revealing that card and getting the trigger effects applied. So again, it's another form and another way of getting that early game. And you can imagine how pressurizing it can be in the early game, because if you revealed an Amaterasu through that skill, then you're basically getting the normal unit aspect, which means you're getting the 6k. Then you're getting the 10k for Amaterasu, putting you to 25, and then you're also getting the critical as well. So yeah, pretty good. You can really pop off sometimes in early game. Like it's very yin and yang, I find. Sometimes you don't do much, but then other times you can just pop off really wildly and just crit out of nowhere, and just your opponent can just escalate so quickly in terms of their damage count. So the deck overall is pretty explosive, so just keep that in mind. But I like playing 4 of this. You can maybe drop this down to 3, just because Soul in this deck is rather valuable, and you need Soul Blast for your Susanoo, because it's a Counter Blast and a Soul Blast. And the one weakness of this deck is that it does struggle with its resources sometimes. Counter Blast, not so much, kind of, it depends, but we do play other cards to sort of try mitigate those downsides. So next we do have a Counterblast card here, but it's actually pretty cool, which is going to be 3 copies of Diviner Yachimatahiko. I hope I'm doing a good enough job for you guys on these names, but yeah. Yachi basically is sort of like a, what they call them, guard restrict, of course. Now this card actually got misprinted because this card says basically your opponent can only your opponent cannot call cards with the same type of the unit that you reveal from his skill, because basically when he attacks, you counterblast as long as you have 5 or more cards in hand, and then you reveal the top card of your deck. And whatever the top card of your deck is, it's meant to say that your opponent can only guard with that type, not that they cannot guard with it. So do bear that in mind. Check the Wikipedia page in this, because yeah, that's basically what it's down as. But basically, the only reason I know that was because I was looking at loads of Susanoo games, and I noticed the error that was on the text. So yeah. So if you reveal, say, like a trigger from this skill, that means your opponent can only call triggers. But if you reveal a normal unit from this skill, they can only call normal units, which also is yeah, that could be pretty deadly, can't it? Because if they can only guard with normal units, they can't guard with triggers. Now, I should say that's only for this guy's attack. It does not count for every attack that you do. But it is somewhat pressurizing, because if you can stack your trigger effects on this card and then somewhat use like your Amaterasu, for example, to set up a normal unit for when this card attacks, then you're looking pretty good there, because you're kind of securing the ability and securing that guard restrict to the point where your opponent will have little to no option, and it can sometimes just outright win you a game at times. Like, I've seen it happen a few times where this card will just come down and just screw up the opponent's guarding scenarios. So yeah, it's really, really cool. I wanted to play 3 of it just because it's kind of like a win con of the deck, kind of, but because it's a little bit like situational in terms of where you're at in the game, I don't think it's worth running 4. But because this deck can be so explosive really quickly, I think it is good to play 3 of this at the very minimum. You could go to 4 or 2, depending on how you feel, but yeah, I feel like 3 is a good enough number for me. Then next with the grade 2s, well, the last grade 2, I'm playing 2 copies of Promise Daughter. Now with this, I decided to go with this just because I wanted another good Vanguard ride target. Because your Kuroikazuchi here is pretty much the only decent one to ride. The other ones only work on rearguard, so I wanted to have something else that was good enough to ride on the Vanguard, and Promise Daughter does fit that. It gets 6,000 power if you have 4 or more cards when it attacks a Vanguard, and that works on Van or rear. And one of the other elements of the card that I like is that it has basically a resist skill, so your opponent can't target it with like card effects, which is pretty good. But yeah, it's kind of good against like, you know, the like Kagero matchups with Blade Master or Overlord, for example, or any other clan that has access to retiring abilities. So it gives you a bit more board presence, is what I'm trying to say with this. So I quite like it, and like I said, I wanted the additional decent grade 2 ride target. But you could probably swap this out for other cards, like, for example, like I know Riley is a very popular card to play in the deck, so you could play that instead over this. But yeah, that's kind of like my mindset on the card, essentially. So I will actually put a Promise Daughter over here somewhere, just so I have space for the grade 1s. So we'll put Promise Daughter here. Yeah, right there will do. Apologies for the glare, but it's not too terrible. So next for the grade 1s, we are playing, it's pretty simple. We're playing the 4 grade 3 searches. This is a really cool artwork. I love this grade 1's grade 3 searcher. Also really potent as well, because you're getting an extra 5k whenever you reveal a card, essentially. So this is more or less a 13k booster or attacker. But more times than often, I put this as a booster behind like my Vanguard, or if I want to make like good numbers with any other unit that's going to get a power boost through their skills. It can really help you just apply that pressure. Because one of the issues with the deck is that it doesn't really hit that hard outside of your triggers being revealed. So when you don't see triggers, you're not really popping off that well. So yeah, this card kind of helps you with those power columns and those power numbers. So yeah. Then to go with it, we're also playing 3 copies of Tetra Magus. I think Tetra Magus is still good to play. Not playing 4 just because... like I said, I played 12 crit in the deck anyway, and I also have the Amaterasus, which kind of act like a pseudo crit. So I feel like Tetra Magus is all like a late game card, which, well, it kind of is really, because you can only play it, use the skill when you're at grade 3. So I don't feel like it's too important to play 4 of it, but I did want to play a high enough ratio of them for those moments where not only can you trigger the abilities of those triggers with your Susanoo and other skills, but then you can reactivate them again with your Tetra Magus, for example. So that's pretty sickening when that can happen. It's very counterblast intuitive, but it's definitely a massive payoff if you can do that. Now, in order to feed those resources, I actually decided to go with 3 copies of Gemini for the deck, just because the extra soul is definitely important to have in the deck available, but also since I'm playing cards in the deck that do cost the counterblast, like the Yachi over here, I feel like it just makes the deck flow a lot better. Now, you can actually replace this if you have access to it, but we have an old promo here that I actually did pick up from a friend, but I wanted to go for like a basic version of the deck that you kind of use as a skeleton essentially for it. But this Battle Sister, I actually don't know what the name is. Penetone? Penetone? I'm not too sure. Yeah, I think so. But anyway, that came out from like last year, I believe, and it's actually pretty good. But like I said, if you want to go for like a sort of budget option, then I'd say that Gemini is probably the most preferable one, because you're getting that counter charge if you need it for things like the Yachi and your Susanoo, but you're also getting that soul as well. So Gemini in itself like pays for the cost of Susanoo, which is such a huge help. And then I should also wrap the grid ones up with this card, because this card's also a counterblast along with the Tetra Magus, I should say. But we have 2 copies of Diviner Muto. So this card basically says when placed, you can put a normal unit from your drop zone to the top of your deck, and then this card gets 15,000 power. So it gets really big, but recycling your normal units is huge because, like I've mentioned numerous times, but your grade 2 and your grade 3 here have the ability of being able to not be recycled essentially with this, and you can get those crit and power skills off again if you ended up like discarding them, or if they got retired. Like let's say you called an Amaterasu to the field and it got retired, you could just bring it back to the top of your deck and then trigger that skill off again through your skills. So I think it's really good, but it kind of holds the same placing, I feel, with Tetra, in that it's a late game card. It requires some setup and some, value to actually pick from the drop zone. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm stood with it. But that's kind of like the basis of the deck that I wanted to go with. Like I said, you can go with other strategies like your Riley plays, and put in like Dia, for example, if you want to go with that. But the triggers is pretty straightforward. We have the starter, of course, being Uzume, which is from the new set. It looks really nice. But yeah, we're going straight out crits. We have the 4 Ginger, the 4 Psychic Bird, and we're playing the 4 Chris Sentinel. I was asking about this, like how you guys felt in like another video that I did, and yeah, when I played the deck, draws, like the draw PGs didn't feel necessary at all. Like it already, like Susanoo provides the deck so much draw anyway, it just felt unnecessary. And I felt like the crits, like having the 12 crit in here with all those reveal skills as well, it just adds to the potency of your early game. And your opponent can just escalate themselves to like 4 or 5 damage, like out of nowhere all of a sudden. And yeah, I mean, crits win games. People say that for a reason. So yeah, but I feel like the crit PG works really well in this deck. And then we have the new heal trigger, which looks absolutely beautiful. Absolutely love this artwork. It looks really cool. But yeah, that's more or less going to wrap the deck up. So I hope I explained my card choices well enough, guys. Like I said in a few videos before this, but still rather new to OTT. But I have feeling myself getting more comfortable with the clan and its playstyle, and it's definitely different to what I'm used to. So yeah, it's definitely a different barrel of fish. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, it's been very fun. It's performed a lot better than I thought it was going to. I do feel like Susanoo is quite underrated, but it does have its flaws, but it also does have really big strengths as well. So I feel like overall it's a really well-rounded deck, and it's quite enjoyable to play. So yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. Drop down below, tell me you guys what you think about the deck, what you guys would probably play, any suggestions for the deck to make it a bit better. Like I've said, I've already given you guys a few suggestions there in terms of what I've seen being played. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with this deck. But yeah, like always, guys, like the video if you liked it, comment down below, tell me what you think, and I will catch you guys in my next video. So take care, guys, and I will see you guys next time. This is Guardian, signing out.